This is Hannah. She's a 24 years old psychology student that loves to sing.
E di zhurma, votat e dimrit. Që 3 vjet vozitin zezën, që gjysë vjetë vozitin me leje. Në falë gabim ke hiqëto. Se po më zërë më e keqë.
And yeah, at the same time works as an assistant to a CEO in a telecommunication company.
Okej, jo veç tash më rastisht u përzinë i sanë. Se o dash me abu 2 herë check-in dhe check-out. Cool. E shkova shihem.
She goes out a lot, talks a lot, and smiles enough.
Kështë gazet për më kini filem për ka dojnë shumë pak e birnit. Albumet e Gillespie, bendit, shitën këtu. Masi së mujtë mu po me bendit në sene, se jam i kitë bashkë. Dhe ble fotografinë e bendit. Aha. Yay!
This is Bojan. He's from the divided town of Mitrovica, and as you can see, it is not an ordinary day. Protests, as usual. Bojan is 24 and has studied journalism and communication in Belgrade, but he keeps coming back to his hometown and likes to go at the churchyard, from where the entire town is seen.
This is Valjon, our on-road producer. He's in a car market looking for a tire that never left Kosovo.
Edhe që kjo, qëto 3 janë?
Syzat e kje, morë për Gjermanie, kemë që shkusanet të tapë një rafë. Mëzja për të kepat të cëna bënelu. Ani se pljo, ka të pljo, ka të spija. Që është një gjena shumë.
This tire will be mine and Hannah's companion / responsibility for the entire trip to all 8 countries. But at this point, we don't have a clue about it.
Being a Kosovar is complicated, especially if you like to travel. A Kosovar needs a permission to travel for almost everywhere. It is only Albania, Montenegro, Macedonia and Turkey that do not ask for visas. Traveling means collecting a bulk of documents. Health insurance, guarantee letters, official funds and whatnot. It is important that you research the requirements in advance and that you are fully prepared. Then you set up a meeting with the desired embassy and in many cases have to go through an interview where you answer questions regarding your plans and your visit. Often these procedures put people off applying. They rather stay home and dream of the place they'd like to see. But if you want to fulfill your dreams, then make sure you are fully prepared and apply for a visa at the appropriate embassy in plenty of time.
Few minutes from now, I'll be meeting Hannah for the first time. She just found out about a tire and is trying to cope with it. Anyhow, I'll be the one carrying it mostly, from here to Brussels and back.
So we're waiting for another girl to arrive. I'm supposed to meet. Oh yeah, there she is. Is she? Why does she have a tire?
Because you're gonna carry it all along.
So what am I supposed to do with this tire?
We're gonna have to carry the wheel all along on our trip.
Oh really?
This is a surprise. They didn't tell us before. I just found out about it. Give it another push here.
Unexpected things will happen, and you should capture that. Have fun and a nice journey.
It took about 7 decades for Albanians to get the right to freely cross the borders of their country. It was in 2003 Thessaloniki summit that EU showed interest to begin its formal enlargement process towards Western Balkans. Albania was among these states, and after 7 years long negotiations process, its citizens were finally free to travel. The Slovenian MEP Tanja Fajon lobbied passionately for Albania during this period. She became very popular among Albanians. As a result, a bar opened in her name.
Gallup Europe does an every year survey. Among others, they ask also for the propensity of immigration. When they presented the study in Tirana, the next day I read in the newspapers 1/3 of Albanians, more than 30% of Albanians, wants to leave Albania. And I wrote an article showing which were the correct results of the survey. And they were not at all that 1/3 of Albanians want to leave Albania. The theoretical potential of emigration of Albanians was 4.8%, which was quasi similar to other Balkan countries, but not at all 33%, as newspapers were saying. Albania has had a hard period these last 2 years. After the elections of 2009, the opposition didn't accept the result of the election. They decided to boycott the parliament, to use demonstration and protest as a political mean. During this time, personally, I was a little bit afraid, because at the end of the day, although by personalities of European Union, including Tanja Fajon, it was systematically said that the visa liberalization is a technical process, it's not a political process. I was thinking, let's suppose that we are going to have a civil unrest. The progress was assessed in an unbiased manner by the structures of the European Commission. And on the other side, in general, Albania democracy has been able to manage the difficult political climate without causing any negative impact on the visa liberalization evaluation. During these 10 months of having a visa liberalization regime, the records from all Schengen countries in the Europe shows that Albanians are not at all abusing with the rules of the visa liberalization. Government has done a good job on doing public awareness about the rules of the visa liberalization, and saying that political asylum will not work, don't use it as an instrument.
We are on our way to shoot a documentary.
Today was our first filming day, and we started with Tirana.
I really like the script.
We get to go in the wild part of Tirana, which I like to call as Cuba.
So far I am extremely happy and content about almost everything, except for the fact that I didn't get to eat today enough.
Germany was very reserved regarding the visa-free regime.
Do you have some?
Wanting to clarify this position, we met the German ambassador, Carola Müller. She greeted us in a tropical garden just by the embassy.
When European leaders first agreed in Schengen that visa requirement and passport requirements should be lifted within the center of Europe, it was kind of an upheaval among politicians and civil servants focusing on interior matters. It was believed that between Germany, the Netherlands and France, this was not conceivable.
Most of your stuff, I guess, did not happen sometime in the past.
It started, yeah. Okay.
When I came in August, a long process was already running and was almost over, because the preconditions and the work to fulfill the requirements is a lengthy process, and it is a lot of work. And the Albanians proved that when they really want something like visa liberalization, they are able to make an effort and to fulfill all the preconditions in a timely manner. Albanians now can benefit from visa liberalization, which means they do not need visa for a trip for touristic purposes.
It's a great shot.
Thank you. Stabilize your tire.
Technical assistance.
Technical assistance. Thank you.
I wouldn't say that my predecessor was skeptical. He was probably as realistic as many others, and Albanians proved that it is possible. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. So take care of your tire.
Po aty të ju mund bëhet një ecje, një narracion, një ku do se çfarë. Sa ti tregojmë pak kohën brenda.
Ermela is a film director and actress whose work is developing internationally. She took us at Tirana's old film city.
Shpresoj që kjo godina e mrekullueshme mos zëvendësohet kurrë. Ka vlera historike edhe kulturore. Hajde shkojmë shohim pjesën përpara se është interesante.
A place where she finds peace and inspiration.
What was your experience before visa liberalization and afterwards? Did anything change? I mean, you're an actress, maybe you have.
Okay, for me especially, the only difference is that before I used to make some application or just to show a reason. Now I don't have any reason. I just have my idea and I can go everywhere I want. I don't want to talk about how it used to be before, because just to talk about the past is a little bit pathetic to me. But now actually everybody has this freedom. Like people that are not using this idea to escape.
Do you travel a lot?
When I have time, yes, of course. I'm trying to make my first long movie as director, and so I will need to go abroad. And after that, when I will finish this project, I will move for a while from Albania, also for this professional reason. But of course, coming back here, the most important reason is that, of course, this is my country, and then I would like to express myself as an artist here, especially.
Albania-Montenegro border is the first cross-border program which promotes cooperation between people, communities and institutions on the bordering areas. Now, instead of 2 passport checks, there is only one, and it's fast, inspiring for sustainable development in the mutual interest of citizens of the 2 countries.
After 18 hours ride from Tirana, I am completely exhausted. The necktie was invented by the Croats. This is why it's called kravata. If you're a Croat and have a job, you can be only 16 and vote. I guess this means that young people here start wearing ties early on.
I lived here for about 7 years or 8.
How old are you?
26.
26. Yesterday we stopped 2 people to orientate us because we didn't know the street and they didn't seem so friendly.
Well, don't jump to conclusions immediately. This is the building, actual building of the Zagreb Soloists. It belongs to them. We have 3 concerts in Moscow, St. Petersburg and somewhere in Siberia. That's exciting. And it's going to be very cold. When I came here, I was 16 and I didn't know the Croatian language at all. I didn't even, at one moment, I didn't feel any homesick or anything. You know, I got into Zagreb immediately. You feel like you're living in a big city, like a metropole or something, but it's at the same time it has this small city atmosphere as well, you know.
Is there any place here called Krivi Put?
Yes. If you stayed in Zagreb a little bit longer, you would end up there after 2 o'clock, you know, if you get drunk.
When I came to Croatia, I realized how far away from Kosovo is, how it's built, the way it functions, what it offers. It just got me thinking that we are so far away from becoming this.
Civil society sector played a significant role in the country's EU membership process.
We had to wake up really early to go and meet with a gong.
It took 8 years of negotiations with EU, and finally, in 2011, they signed a treaty to become the bloc's 28th member. Corruption, intolerance of non-Croats, and the border dispute with Slovenia were the main obstacles.
I cannot say that Croatian government ever saw a need for any help from civil society. In our experience, it meant much more meetings and discussions with representatives from the European Union, while the government basically ignored us and still does. The European Union, as a structure, is open to civil society organizations, to various think tanks, to various advocacy networks, you know, people who have expertise and are independent-minded. From the level of European Union, we were able to, through this sort of boomerang effect, still have some influence. When you look through a perspective of Croatia-EU negotiations and how the whole process went, I hope the other countries in the region get to learn a lot from how it went here, and especially civil society organizations try to use the methods and the model that civil society organizations use here. What we did is follow the benchmarks, how the European Union measures them, and we, a coalition of civil society organizations here in Croatia, decided to do our own benchmarking. So on that level, when you had the benchmark prevention of corruption, it was made out of two issues: freedom of information and prevention of conflict of interest. So what we did is make our own analysis, how the system works, what should be changed within the legislation and the bodies that are supposed to implement the law. Suggest that to the government, never minding if they care or not, but also to suggest it to various European Union representatives. Our government got to read our suggestions and recommendations, perhaps not always as our own, but also as European Unions. Okay.
The high-quality roads seem to relax the loud machine of our van. We're in Slovenia, the first ex-Yugoslav country to enter the EU.
So this is a first stop on our road to Brussels.
The place where we are now is just very close to Italian border, so the vineyard is placed between Slovenia and Italy.
We came to Goriška Brda, a viticulture zone where our hosts, Vesna and Aleš Kristančić, produce wine through organic farming in vineyards between Slovenia and Italy.
This is Colio region. The border with Italy is 10 meters after that houses. We have nearly half vineyards in Italy and half here. All together we have 22 hectares.
Most of the wine produced here is exported to the EU and USA.
There is my father. He gave me the opportunity that I am today what I am. Because he was somebody who maintained the vineyards for me. His life was dedicated to survive, to maintain Movia alive in a very difficult time, to maintain what is very important, the tradition not only of wine growing, because we was never selling grapes. Our product is wine, is bottle of wine. His job was to maintain the tradition of making wine. They think, because you are from this country, that maybe, yes, this wine is okay, but, the cellar is terrible. We believe they are coming from a terrible place, and they never was here, just because of the bad image of the country. You understand this? Somebody, just because you are from somewhere, he think negative. If you are good, you are good. The taste doesn't understand the borders. Today we have to think, we have to be open, we have to respect each other, and everybody have to have a proud to be what he is. And then, together, we can make, just with respect, bigger this Europe and this planet.
Our experience today was amazing.
So beautiful.
Živjela.
So we are in Vienna.
And I was really curious to see the museums, to see the statues of famous composers and musicians.
Kana, share the third place with me.
You have to wear it like Formula 1 around the neck.
I didn't get quite much to see Austrian people, maybe because we mostly spent time in a part where there were a lot of immigrants, so I got only to hear people talking Turkish or some Asian language.
Now that I see two of you, I kind of feel sorry for not having hair, so it can wave in this wind.
Sorry for my hair in your face.
Vienna is a strictly organized, massive city.
Personally, I wouldn't like to live in Vienna. Besides the beautiful buildings, Vienna didn't give me the warmest feeling.
Vienna is crowded by monuments, tourists and workers who can't get enough of delicious coffee and cakes.
Sammelpunkt der Gesellschaft finds
Trüffeltorte.
yeah, chocolate. Is it heavy?
Yeah. You'll be able to survive it. No problem. Yes, I was a little bit pissed today because I spent I think 6 hours waiting. First 1 in the morning and then 5 after in the afternoon, waiting for some shootings. And I really think that being punctual is important, and I don't feel like we are being punctual. So
Gasse was some kind of small road.
Street, yeah.
Street.
Gasse. I think that's just one-way street, and the Straße is with 2 ways.
I guess in many ways, variety produces a lot of waste, for which the city found an incredible solution.
We had a lot of garbage in Vienna, about 700,000 tons per year, and we have 2 incineration plants. One is near the city, it's Völzersteig, and the other is in the opposite of the city, called Spittelau, and it was necessary to build the third one. And it's located here to support the surrounding areas with heat and electricity.
The Municipal Environmental Protection Group collects the waste, ensuring that it's not left unused, and brings it to the Pfaffenau plant.
We are producing electricity for 25,000 households and district heat for 50,000 households. We underline or undercut the standards of the European Union with about 90%.
Please take it. And if the size is wrong, you can change it at the back.
My head is very small. Okay, good.
The waste is organized and afterwards sent in for burning at high temperatures, by eventually converting the waste into heating and electricity.
Yeah, what you see now is the heart of the incineration plant.
This is the most environmentally friendly way of producing heat and electricity.
Yeah, what you see here is the metal separation.
Pristina has 40,000 households. A waste plant of this size would cover the heating for the entire capital, while the same plant would keep the lights on for half of the city.
Our trip to Frankfurt was a bit strange. We were hearing a sound, a weird sound coming from the van. Bojan is the only one who sleeps while we travel.
Maybe lager, maybe something spoon. Okay. Something is wrong.
Can you please check it just so we can know what's happening with it?
Yeah, we will check it.
All of a sudden, it was impossible to continue further.
Jo është që provat nuk ka sej. Kjo do të veç më transportu.
Do të me
Plus paqin.
Po dhe? Na është ta me këshën me veta është normal na me najtë në bës, na me nashtë në pa.
Shansës.
Jo nashtë në pa, du me najtë.
Me ty, ja, shansës.
Edhe pa 3 ditë më rrit pa.
Our van was severely ill.
I want to give you a name and I think that this is the right one.
We were in the middle of nowhere. It was late and a meeting was waiting for us next morning in Frankfurt.
IVECO. Okay. Këta na shojnë ndim për 1 orë. Na kanë lokalizu, për din adresën ku jena, për din venin ku jena. Ja spjegova çka e më të mi. Te kjerë.
Po.
Lagere.
Zafesh dhe lagere.
Lag.
Oh Gott, das ist irgendwie sehr Pristina.
Pristina.
Ja,
Pristina.
The insurance was not recognized, so we were left alone to deal with the issue. After millions of phone calls and hours waiting, we finally got another van to transport us. We left our car and the driver behind, feeling confused.
We went out and we saw a lot of people in the suits, which for me, was suffocating. The city has so much rules, and the life is from 9 to 5, and everything is just set.
Since everybody was running to work, we decided to have a silent protest in the middle of the center. We were motionless for several minutes in the name of peace and relaxation.
This tire, it is becoming a burden. It hurts to carry it all around the city. And I was thinking of maybe throwing it away, but no, now I make peace with it.
Oh, super.
I'm a trader, stock trader.
Oh, okay.
So I work in the investment banking part of the bank. It means working quite long hours, but you get used to it. It's not a big deal. The last thing I wanted to be is a banker, and then I became a banker.
What did you want to be?
I wanted to study architecture.
Oh.
But I had to wait to get a space at the university. So meanwhile, I started to work for Commerzbank. Then I keep developing myself and had better job opportunities, and I've been living in London as well for 1.5 years.
Oh, cool.
So things were always moving and improving, and du collect me. Kryssisht mirë me për shembull me tregtit-aksionet, shmerone, me shitjen e blerjen, ose mirë është me merger acquisition, IPO, të thonë një mund kompanive më të qasë në bursë, ose e treta është pak a shumë si krijon produkte në të mirë që përshtaten bashkë që i duhen klientit.
How long your family been living here?
You can ask my father later, but I think he came to Germany.
No, I want to know if you're
71, 72, something like this. My close family is here, but once a year at least I go down to see the rest of the family, and it's just a good change because it's so different.
You don't ever consider to going back and live there?
At the moment, to be honest, not. I think it would be very difficult at the moment. Although I wouldn't say it's impossible, but maybe in 10 years' time, yeah.
Devojčica izgleda, mama isto i ovaj je stari, od čerke. Vidite porem kon Štira, padi gjuhën, po ndërkohë u dësh më adaptu. Gjenerata tane në konë gjithë qysh ma të qeta, në konë ne jemi ardhë me fitu i dinar, me majtë familje të thë.
O do është ju me majtë dikon atje përveç familjes ju një ku?
Po në me atë mundësin tanë, që kemi mujtë, kemi shtradorën, ka kemi mujtë, që kemi mujtë, po edhe mundësit nuk në kohë qasë tarë në të kënë kona sa të qasë, këtu me jetu, kur e konë gjatë që gjendja fështirë që konë, që kemë marë familje në Drënicë, e kemë pas një familje një atë 3 vjetë, ata dhe majshim në pejkojt, na, a i kushërini që ka pas atë përgjësi, ja që ka të njima përgjëth mujë.
Qa këshit për upi Kosovës këto me pas?
Pa e vendlinje, qërë do qovë, ma mirë se gjonë.
You're such a strong girl.
We left our slow van to continue the trip for Paris with a fast Eurostar train.
You have arrived at the Strasbourg station. Last stop on the train.
From the beginning of this trip, I was really excited for Paris.
16. Transport is our point of interest in France.
Allez, champagne!
This country made a significant investment in modern public transportation, constructed lines that increased mobility, connected goods and people with other EU countries, and built the landmark Channel Tunnel, which connects the country with Britain by rail.
Transport, I think, is a key aspect of the economy because transport is both a sector in itself, employing millions of people across Europe, but it's of course also the backbone for the economy. This is what brings people closer together. This is what the whole European project is basically about from the beginning.
What am I asking?
This one is cemetery Montmartre. No, but this one is...
No, but I'm asking for this one.
Oh, this one is here, yeah.
If we know each other better, then we're less likely to be at war with each other. Transport is a sector in itself, so you also have to look at all the employment conditions of people working in transport, which is quite non-negligible employer as well. And closely linked to this, you also have employment condition, but employment condition means basically safety of transport.
The various transportation modes, such as seaports, canals, railways, roads and airways, were effectively utilized by the French to foster development in all sectors of its economy, but notably in agriculture and tourism.
Unfortunately, we also have a lot of challenges for transport. Transport is 96% dependent on oil, so we're trying to move away from oil. That will also, and closely linked to this, have an impact on the greenhouse gas emissions and on climate change. We have seen that member states, countries in general, invest mostly for their core cities and core agglomerations where most people live, and they tend to neglect the connections to all the neighboring countries. We want to bring more traffic from the road to the rail and from the road to inland waterways, shipping as well, because that's more environmentally friendly. Infrastructure is something to invest in it in the national interest as well. But from a European perspective, what is important is that you have the right legislation in place, as I said, for standards, for safety, for etc., so that you have aligned your national rules with the European rules, and then it will be much easier to open the market so that there can be free circulation.
Et nous longeons à présent la façade sud de la cathédrale avec les trois magnifiques rosaces, l'une des plus grandes d'Europe de 200 mètres de diamètre.
I think you have to always distinguish to have a minimum connection for everybody to be able to reach more or less the whole territory. And then I would advise that you invest in some technology of the future, more like rail and maybe even high-speed rail to have main access and main connections to your main markets where you want to export to.
Well, I don't have actually much to share because it's been a wonderful time, and it's been really an intense 3 days period. I wish we could have stayed longer, but I guess this is pretty good as well.
It's a very nice place to visit, especially if you're in a relationship. It's truly a city of love.
Wait all together in one place, and then we go.
Trećin do Migova.
Gde si uzeo tu kašu planju? Išli smo u hotel.
Ovo sam kod Kineza još u Frankfurtu, a on je uzela danas.
I ja sam uzela. Znam. If you sleep or no.
Imaš ovdje sad breskicu. Peach.
No.
Hvala ti puno, Bojane. Nisam znači ko kašu. Ne, i bez...
Britain applied 3 times for the accession to EU. It was only in 1973 that were granted membership after 12 years. This is not my first time in London. I've been here before. Even though I didn't have much of a good experience last time, I always love to come here, and it's one of my favorite places. Not that I've traveled so much, but still.
I am extremely tired because we got really late last night, and I was also pissed last night because we was looking for a hotel for like 1 hour.
I hope that everyone is enjoying it because we're approaching the end of our trip, and you know, at least it's good to get some, you know, London punk energy. The investment in research and innovation brought us here.
In this country, at the university level, the big money for research increasingly comes from grant-giving bodies, both ones funded directly by the government and some other bodies, including some major foundations and charities. Because of that, research is increasingly pushed into a kind of scientific model where you have to go for big grants that involve teams of people doing collaborative projects. And this, I think, is something that worries me, because it's a model that works well for, I don't know, biology or and maybe a few things in the humanities, maybe social history if you're compiling some big database, or economics. But much of the basic research in the humanities, I think, does not fit this model. In the past, we had completely free university education. Then, under the Blair government, they introduced a very small level of fees for students and a system of loans where they could borrow the money from the state and pay it back later. And what this government has done is increase the fee level dramatically, from £3,000 a year to £9,000 a year. Again, with a system of loans. I came quite soon after the war, in October 1999. I was struck by the speed of rebuilding and people restoring their lives at a very sort of simple, practical level. And I was worried at the back of my mind that people seemed to be concerned only with sort of rebuilding their family home and so on, that you know, you need more than that to build a society. You need organizations and political parties developing in the normal way, and you need that sort of general trust in all the structures of society that people have in well-established states like the United Kingdom, but they're very difficult to create in those conditions. But gradually I think one sees more of that, although I can see that it isn't perfect yet. Little private so-called universities that sprang up. As in Albania, it became too easy for people just to create something and call it a university. And one needs very strict controls of that. That is essential.
The lecturer asked me if I would like to stay and do a PhD. It was sponsored by this company who was designing this aircraft, and the PhD would be in aerodynamics and CFD, computational fluid dynamics, in this wing alone, and then the combination of both. You don't actually get, I was very lucky because you never get a chance to do both. So it's a unconventional wing.
Oh,
so you know how they tapered?
Yeah.
In real life, they're just made like that.
Yeah.
So they're called tapered wings. This is a W-shaped wing.
Oh.
So these wings were designed to be used in something called air taxi because it's so crowded in London. They were thinking of getting some small taxis, airplanes, which they would fly in a very short distance. This aeronautics department has been open for a century, almost a century. Mm-hmm. So in 100 years, they actually had no women doing PhD in aerodynamics, which is unique. They don't discriminate against you, but they do discriminate indirectly, because if you're a European Union student or if you're a European Economic Area student, then you pay 9 times less than an international student, which can't afford it in the first place. The reason why I came here, the reason why I asked my parents to sell the shop is because I wanted to do this. So obviously I loved it from the beginning, which is good.
Parliament is a massive, scary building.
Parliament is a transparent building.
We were finally here to meet those who represent us. This is the Slovenian MEP, Tanja Fajon, trying to make us comfortable.
I have been in the Parliament since 2009, so it's my first mandate. I can say I'm a newcomer, though I know the institution pretty well. I've been here in Brussels living before as a journalist and correspondent for EU affairs. And for that, I can say today I, in a way, stepped on the other side, but I can deal with the content, so I can shape the legislation. This moves every Friday to Strasbourg when we have a Strasbourg session.
Oh my God.
So imagine more than 700 boxes. No, they go with a big. Kosovo, as you know, it's a very sensitive issue and it's a very delicate issue. We are in the Parliament trying very hard that Kosovo would open the visa dialogue process, because I think it's very important that the country doesn't stay too isolated, because we are facing growing frustration and people cannot really travel free. It's like a black spot on the map of the Western Balkans. For that reason, I think it is very necessary that European Union would start a dialogue with Kosovo, which means to put on the table clearly all the technical conditions what Kosovo has to do.
Oh, look, you have a picture of Bayram Recepi.
Yes. To enter as well visa-free regime means that you have to have safe borders. means that they have to have safe documents, and people should really respect obligations. For me, it was difficult to understand, coming from Slovenia, which is only a few hundred kilometers away, that there is still a country with young generation which is close behind the border. So it's sometimes not easy to understand, but I think that the education, the access to the web, what is important for young people, opens new perspectives. And I deeply hope that with entering visa-free regime, it will open as well new European perspective to young generation. Who has signed it already?
It's
Noel Malcolm.
Noel Malcolm. It's a historian from UK. Mimosa, what was her last name?
Was
She's
the
an
jet
engineer.
engine designer.
Here, should I
And
sign
this is
it?
the Meredith, Lawrence Meredith from the European Commission.
So I sign it here,
Yeah.
okay?
When I go to Kosovo, I meet all levels of society, from government, prime minister, to opposition parties, to media, to friends I have by now, to people from think tanks. I go to different parts of the country. I've been to Prizren, I've been to Peja, I've been to the north, I've been to North Mitrovica. I met Kosovo Serbs in the north, those who try to live in Kosovo. I've been known to be rather frank in my opinions, so I've been criticizing government when I think I have to. I've been greeting it and saluting it for positive things. The very positive thing I found that there's so many young people like you. I really like that, and I think it's something where I always argue with the ministers of the interior who do not want to start the visa dialogue, telling them, these young people, they want to know what this hailed European Union is about. How do you want to keep them there and isolate them there? It doesn't have to do as much with Kosovo. It has to do with right-wing and extreme right-wing parties who are very nationalist and very racist in a way, getting stronger, who don't want any more foreigners. And unfortunately, Kosovo's image in the EU is not a very good one. It has to do with the war. It has to do with sort of having fought a war against Serbia, with like guerrilla fighters. It has to do with things like corruption and organized crime, which is not only in Kosovo, it's in other parts as well. But it's sort of this image which isn't helpful. And so there is this image of those Kosovars, no, we don't want them anymore. The ministers of interior don't think of you. They just think of their own electorate and of people and of these right-wing parties. What is so important for young people, and you probably know that as well, is really get an education, and study and learn as much as you can as young as you are. Keep an independent mind. Learn to be daring. Learn to be courageous. It might be difficult for a moment, but then you grow with that as a person as well. EU, Kosovo is also Europe. We mingle that up.
On the path of future EU integrations, what do you think is going to pose let's say, the biggest problem on Kosovo's way toward the European Union?
From our perspective in the EU, I think I would highlight four. The first is the rule of law. It's important that the government makes much more substantial efforts to tackle organised crime and corruption. The second is public administration reform. I think it's extremely important that the government builds on what's already been done and really develops the capacity of public administration, which is still weak. And thirdly, I would say the economy. We were particularly concerned to see the government go off track with the International Monetary Fund program. We think that's regrettable, and we would vigorously encourage them to get back on track with the IMF. And fourthly, of course, there are issues of the integration of all the communities in Kosovo, and I mean, we in this year's report we will be recognising the efforts made to integrate, in particular, the Serb community south of the Ibar River, but expressing concern that very little has happened with regard to integration in the north. This year, that's of particular importance. I think that the recently established Ministry of European Integration has had a big role to play in strengthening the government's engagement with the European Union and in coordinating more effectively the work of the different departments. And I think you can see that in the way we've now had 2 complete cycles of what we call the Stabilization and Association Process Dialogue. I think you can see a real commitment and an increasing professionalism in the way Kosovo has handled those meetings.
We are on our way to a final meeting with a lobbyist.
Is lobbying derived from lobby, like?
It is. It originally starts from America, which is the home of lobbying. Where literally there used to be in the House of Representatives or the Senate, there used to be a group of people who would stand outside in the lobby and who would try to get hold of the politicians to get their point across, and that was called lobbying. My clients are usually in the private sector, and if you like, I act as a facilitator of communication between them and the institutions, because oftentimes people in the institutions will talk about laws, etc., and people in the private sector will talk about doing business. And if what I try to do is bring those 2 worlds together. One of the things about Brussels is to make a decision, an awful lot of people are involved. So you have people who sit in that building over there, which is the European Commission, who come up with proposals for legislation. So we have to know who are the people who hold the pen and who are drafting the legislation. We also need to know which politician at the top of the Commission will make the political decision to go ahead with that proposal. And then we need to look at what legal basis is used for deciding the decisions and how many people are involved from the Commission. You need to work through the system and work through all the key people that are involved and make sure you have the right messages to put forward to them at the right time and in the right format that they can understand it.
So this is our last stop, Brussels. I don't know if I should be feeling sad or happy that I'm leaving.
You've been very good today. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy that I'm going to be seeing my friends and family. Sad that this trip's ending. It's been a lot of fun and a lot of stress as well.
It's the end of our trip, for which I'm sorry about. Home is where heart is, and definitely my heart is in Pristina, and I can't wait to go back. I've learned a lot as a citizen, especially I've learned a lot how to behave in a very developed country. I compared to where I live, and I know that there are 2 different worlds. I hope that the new generation is going to bring the new spirit, and I hope that everyone's going to try their best to develop our country in different aspects. I know that I'm going to need a lot more visas to travel for who knows how many years. I also wanted to point out that, I enjoyed working with the whole team, but especially with Boyan. And Boyan, you have quite a big head, you know that. And I have quite a small head, which means yours is bigger and smarter, obviously.
This one.